I don't think people realize how strong they really are. And it surprises them because a lot of people can do it. I think most first time people I see and we do it and they come in and they surprise themselves about how strong they really are.
If it's uncomfortable and it doesn't feel right and it kind of hurts a little, you're probably doing Strongman right.
Welcome to Only the Greatest Podcast. If you're feeling stuck and unsure what to do next in your fitness journey, we might be what you're looking for. My name is Philip. I own and operate OTG Fitness, which is a private personal training gym on the south side of Houston in Webster. I do this podcast every week with my best friend, Daryl. We've been friends since third grade and working out together ever since. Also joining us today will be Sean. He's the one that makes this podcast not only sound great, but look good as well. Our goal here is to help Houston make its way up the ladder of health and fitness. So if you're in the Houston area and ready to become the greatest version of yourself, be sure to like and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. All right, guys, why don't we get started by you just explaining exactly what Strongman is? Because I feel like a lot of people maybe have seen it a little bit here and there, like on TV, you know, but they don't know exactly what it is, where it comes from and stuff like that. So why don't you tell us about that? And either you guys can answer, and then we'll just kind of go into the details of how you guys got started with it.
How about you, babe?
So Strongman's more like functional strength, right? Builds up your tendons and ligaments a lot more because not only do you have to be strong, you have to be athletic. You have to move quickly with a large amount of weight. So it builds the body differently. Mm-hmm. It's a lot different than just bodybuilding or even powerlifting where you get static strength. You have to have your static strength, but you also have to be athletic and be able to move with the weight as well.
It's a combination of all things. Right. It's not just this or just that. Kind of encompasses all parts of strength, functionality, kind of everything all into one. And we're going to go later on a little bit deeper into exactly what the training looks like and all that kind of stuff. But what are some of the, just real quick, what are some of the, I can't think of the word, but like, what do you use? What is the equipment in the events? Like what does that look like in Strongman? Because people know powerlifting is just weightlifting, right? But like within Strongman, like what kind of stuff is there?
So I think one of the interesting things about Strongman is that it can be anything. So during a competition, you can say, hey, we're going to do this. There are some events and implements that you use that are pretty traditional. But you can come up with, hey, if you want to do a boat deadlift, you could do a boat deadlift. I don't know. That could be your implement that day.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So what are the most traditional ones, though?
I mean, traditional, your log press. Log's pretty traditional in Strongman. Axle, maybe right behind it. You got Atlas stones because everybody loves watching the Atlas stones at the end. It's something completely different than you'd see at a normal gym. Yoke carry. Sandbag medley stuff, even though that's getting a little bit more mainstream. So stuff like that, pulling a semi, everybody loves, which honestly is one of the easier events.
It is.
It's just a spectacle, right? But it is one of the easier events to do.
Yeah, the Atlas Stones is the one I was looking for because like that's what immediately when someone says Strongman, that's what I think about. You know, I remember watching it as a kid.
Yeah, World's Strongest Man.
Yeah, the World's Strongest Man.
Late at night, right?
Yeah, and watching the Atlas Stones, I remember they would always talk about like the taller people have an advantage in this, and that is a cool thing about Strongman as well is. You might be built for one event, but not built for another one.
Absolutely.
So yeah, and we can talk about those things later. But how did you guys get into Strongman?
So I got into. I watched it back in the '90s, like you saw, and a lot of people did, early 2000s. When I was in high school and into college, I didn't train that way, but it was very fascinating to watch, obviously. And when I stopped water polo and swimming in college, I started to get into Strongman. I did my first competition in 2002, Texas Strongest Man, so over 20 years ago now. Came in completely dead last.
Okay, I was about to ask how you did.
Just got whomped. you know, it was first time touching a lot of the implements and doing a lot of things. And the guy that won was 7'1" from Finland.
Okay.
So just a little guy.
But he was here in Texas. But
He lived in Texas, and yeah, if I could remember his name, I can't off the top of my head right now. It'll come to me later, but it was just a great experience. And then the next year I came back and I won the title.
Wow.
Next year, so.
Nice.
So do you feel like you didn't do well, not because you weren't strong, but because you weren't practiced, or?
I wasn't strong for strongman.
Okay.
Right. So I built up strength and I was strong. I had some static strength, but I didn't have the strongman strength that you really needed. And that's ligaments, joints, being able to pick things up and stabilize your core and run with them, move with them quickly. Right. And then be able to rebound off that and move to the next implement. And a lot of people think strongman is just, and in some events they are, it's just raw strength, but it's not. It's a lot of technique, a lot of where to place your hands, how you need to pick things up, the different segments of every lift. So there's a lot that goes into it.
When you say static strength, can you explain what you mean by that?
Like deadlift, squat, you're picking something up and you're not moving with it.
Okay.
Right. You're staying static with it. And like a power lifter, right?
Right.
It correlates into strongman if you strengthen your ligaments and your tendons and get your cardio up a little bit with heavy weight. Like picking up something very heavy and moving with it really stresses the nervous system and your body. You have to train your body to be able to take that stress.
Sure. Yeah. It's much different. And you're doing both of those things like on the same day, right?
Yeah.
To your maximum output.
Yes.
Right.
Right. It's
In one event.
Oh, in the same event even. I was thinking like going from one event to another event in the same day.
yeah. A strongman contest is very grueling. It usually takes most of the day. So it's very hard to be strong and then back off and try to rest and then be strong again. Because an event could last, 8-9 hours.
Wow. I have lots of questions about endurance training versus strength training
I
and
was
stuff.
just
But
about
we're
to
gonna
say, it seems like there's a lot of endurance involved.
yeah,
too.
we're gonna hold off until we get to that topic. But Eve, have you ever competed in strongman?
I have. I've actually only competed once, which is sad to say because I've trained for a bunch of competitions and I've just gotten too nervous.
But she won.
You
I
won?
did win. Yes,
Wow.
I did.
Okay. Okay.
Nice.
I have actually been training for about 13 years now, and that happens to be because we've been married for about 13 years now.
Okay.
Next week.
Wow. Oh, congratulations.
yeah, thank you.
so close.
So I got into strongman in early high school because my brother and his meathead friends, who happened to be really hot, were hanging out in our living room watching strongman late at night.
I'm assuming we have one of the friends. We have one of the friends here with us today.
Turns out. Yeah. And then I would tag along with him, like when they would go to the gym to lift. I was like, me too. And my brother hated it, but they didn't mind so much.
Okay.
Well, one of them didn't mind so much.
But everyone else was like, what is going on?
Why is
man?
this kid coming with us? But, I was always kind of intrigued by it. And then flash forward 13 years. We've all been off and done our own things. We got back together. Well, we weren't ever together before, but we got together finally, got married, and we started wanting to do things together. And we both like to work out. So it just kind of evolved from there.
So y'all were like childhood friends.
Yeah.
And then went your separate ways.
Right, yeah.
And then
So basically,
fitness brought you guys back together.
I was 15 and he was 18, and my parents were like, "That's not gonna fly."
Sure.
So once we were adults, I couldn't really say anything anymore.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. What is it? What was it about? Like, was it more because you wanted to go hang out with him, or did you actually enjoy the working out piece at that time?
Yes, I've always been an athlete. I've been
Okay.
a swimmer, water polo player, just like he was. I mean, our lives are very much aligned. I did enjoy working out too, but it was just more fun when you had eye candy.
Sure. Yeah, and so both you guys were swimmers.
Yes,
I feel like that's very different than strongman.
very.
Very different. I was actually a very high level swimmer and water polo player. I played for the national team in water polo. I played for Pepperdine for college, and I made Olympic trials in swimming.
Wow. And did you I don't know what the beyond of that, I would assume that there's not much of a career in that field. I mean, am I right or wrong?
Yeah, unless you go to the Olympics, which I was not at that level in either water polo or swimming. I was close, but I wasn't at that precipice of it. So for me, it was when I blew my shoulder out in college, it was kind of done. It was time to like start working and get into the workforce, and swimming and water polo was kind of over for me.
Right.
There's nowhere for it to go.
Yeah, and how long was the gap between like that part of your fitness life, I guess, and then when the strongman started?
A couple of years. I had to put on a good amount of weight. I would say probably about 2 years. I started and even when I was a swimmer and water polo player, I was bigger, 200-pound swimmer, which is unusual.
Right.
I'm not overly tall. I'm 6'2", so I was a bigger swimmer. So I was a sprinter, and I lifted all the time. So
He actually got in trouble for it in high school.
For lifting too much?
Yeah, his coach would.
I mean, that's definitely a stigma that is almost gone completely these days, I feel like, but there is still some of it hanging out in certain sports,
Yeah, I think now they've adopted to training and lifting weights a lot, and swimming, and they train their swimmers differently. Back then they would make long distance swimmers and sprinters all do the same thing. They've educated themselves quite a bit, so now it's much different. So I think the way I trained back then would actually be more applicable to how they would train athletes now for swimming. So
yeah, it just took a long time for the science to come around and for the coaches to kind of believe it and stuff like that. You were big for a swimmer. What about you're a big guy. You're 6'2".
I weigh 275 right now.
6'2", 275. So how does that compare to the average strongman? Is that about average? Is that big, small?
I'm small.
Okay.
In an open class. Now, not height wise, and I hold a lot of muscle, but a lot of guys are going to weigh a lot more than me. I'm usually the lightest guy in the competition.
Wow.
But I also have won all my competitions in the last 2 years. So I think it goes to, in strongman, you can't just be big. You have to be athletic. You have to be strong and athletic. So holding too much weight can work against you.
Sure. Would you consider yourself fast? Like, are you one of the faster guys because of your smaller size?
Yeah, I am. I mean, much quicker,
Okay.
more explosive in my movements and stuff like that. But and also in a lot of cases, my stack strength is just up there with the 350, 400-pound guys.
Yeah.
In most competitions, I either win or come very close to winning the deadlift. So it's just my muscle maturity is a little bit different.
And you've been training for a very long time.
Over 20 years for strongman. So I've hurt
However-
myself a lot, but
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Well, 20 years ago, he also kind of took the other road of being larger, right?
I did. I made the mistake most strongmen make, and you see a lot of them. They put on a lot of weight so quickly. They put on bad weight. You get fat. To be honest with you. And to quote my favorite strongman, Sven Carlson, is, "You don't have to be fat to be strong." And I'd probably rephrase it as, "You don't have to be unhealthy to be strong."
That is so true.
Yes.
I love that.
So you were just very unhealthy, and it wasn't the greatest thing. And you see a lot of the strongmen, they'll get really big, and then they'll start cutting weight, and they'll get really lean. And that's when they really get really good, right? Because even now that I'm 20 years older and I'm a lot lighter, I used to weigh 330, I probably could beat my old self in a strongman competition.
Even though you're 60 pounds
Yeah.
less. And I'd like to talk about some of the events specifically that speed kind of gives you an advantage of. But before we go into that, something that we wanted to discuss was kind of like the stigma and the thoughts behind strongman. And when someone hears it for the first time, there is a certain thought of, ooh, that's only for this person or that person, or I have to be this
Absolutely.
to compete. Can we talk about that a little bit? Why
Sure.
you feel like that is, and how can we overcome that?
I think a lot of it comes from, I guess our generation at least only saw it on TV overseas, and they were these giant men, right? So we have a gym, and people come in, and part of our gym is Strongman Saturday. That's something we offer to anyone with any membership because we just do it for fun. Sorry. And everyone's like, "Oh no, I'm not strong enough for that. I'm not there yet. Maybe after I get some strength or put it on." But it's really scaled to your level of athleticism. Like, yeah, you don't have to be the strongest one in the room to enjoy the strongman events. There, we can tailor it. We can teach you the techniques. Yes, you need to, work towards, getting stronger if that's something you really want to go to as a career. But just as a hobby, just as something fun, I think it's really something that anyone can do, and people don't realize that. I think they're a little bit afraid of it.
Are there classes?
Yeah.
How does that, is it weight classes or?
Oh, weight classes, yes.
Okay.
So there's novice, which anyone can do, obviously. And then, yes, we have, it depends on which federation you go into the exact weights. But there's middleweight.
There's multiple weight classes.
Heavyweight, masters.
20 years ago, there's just one weight class, which I prefer just one weight class in strongman. But there are multiple.
Well, there are. And for the sport to evolve, it's going to have to be that way.
That's right. Why do you feel that way? Why do you like just having one?
Even when I'm lighter, I would enter the heaviest weight class I have. Or now that I'm older, I'm in a master's class. Master's is really no weight class, which I kind of prefer. I don't mind competing against the 400-pound guys, right? I feel like that's how it should be. Just like the old UFCs where you had Taekwondo versus karate versus jiu-jitsu. Like, it's just the different things. I think it made it more interesting that, okay, you got a guy that's 6'2", 275 competing against a guy that's 6'8", 400 pounds, and they have different strength and different, different things about them, right? But, the smaller guy can hold his own with the bigger guy, and I have advantages in some things, and they have advantages in some things. So I thought it was just more interesting that way.
What are the weight classes? Because when you said weight classes, I'm thinking like, the standard weight classes for fighting and stuff like that are like 120, 140. I'm sure like I'm way off.
And I also noticed that you said open. That kind of reminds me of like bodybuilding when you, that's usually the really, really, really big guys, right?
Right. So even the open class has
Weight classes now.
Weight classes.
Yeah.
So
Gotcha.
for the men, because I don't really know the women's exactly, but for the men, the big cutoff is 105 kilos, so 231 pounds. So anything under 231 would be the lightweight class. Anything above 231 is a heavyweight class. Then the heavyweight class has multiple classes within it. You have I guess they call them like middle heavies, which is up to 265. Then you got heavyweights, which is up to 300. Then you got your super heavies, which is above 300.
No, you said kilos. Is that kilos or pounds?
That was pounds.
Yeah.
Okay.
The official stats are probably in kilos, right?
Yeah.
But then we convert it to pounds.
It depends on what federation. One federation goes towards the powerlifting weight classes. Another federation goes towards Olympic lifting weight classes.
Okay.
But they're pretty similar. So one federation cuts it off at 220. Anything under 220 is lightweight. Anything above 220 is heavyweight. Mm-hmm. The other federation is 231.
So do you think that over and under is like a good thing? Because 200 versus 300 is a pretty significant difference.
So it's big, yeah. So I think lightweight, heavyweight's a good class.
Yeah, I kind of agree with
anything
that.
under 231, anything above 231. And then, if you're 235, you have to compete against a guy that could be 400 pounds.
Yeah.
I don't mind that because a lot of guys can hold a lot of muscle at 235.
I agree, yeah. You can be a large person at 240 pounds.
Like me, because there's been many world's strongest men. They're 280, 290. They've competed against guys that were 7 foot tall, 400 pounds. So I just prefer not so many weight classes, and everybody kind of has to use their strengths for them, and it's just one big competition.
I think I'm with them. And
So
just the over and under.
Right. I kind of am, especially with the traditional males. I think for women, the weight classes are really important, though.
Can you talk about why?
I really think that women's bodies vary so much differently holding 10 extra pounds. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, I'm struggling to get under a weight class right now where my weight on one implement jumps up 35 pounds overhead. And, it's just almost impossible.
Oh, so when you go from different divisions, the events are different.
The weights are different, yeah.
The weights for the event can change, yes.
I didn't realize that. Okay,
so I could do 125 for the log overhead, or I could do 155, which is for someone my height, weight, it's going to be very.
Yeah, that brings in some strategy, into the equation for sure. Because now I can be under a certain weight. Now, if I can just get that one pound,
right?
Now I can have to lift less.
And women are like, I always want to be lower anyway.
Yeah.
So.
You guys, I don't know. I'm not super familiar with CrossFit. In CrossFit, like the CrossFit Games, do they have weight classes like that? I think it's all women, all men, right?
Yeah, there's the RX.
We don't know much about the CrossFit competition
right?
style, but
You can do, so you compete and you have the prescribed weight, or they call it scaled if you don't do the prescribed weight.
Oh, yeah.
So
Because
they change the
I
weight.
think in competition, there's just any weight.
I think it's just
You can
male
do
and
any weight.
female.
Yeah,
And
that's what I
then-
think.
Then I
Right.
think there's
Yeah.
a master's class. Over
Oh,
40.
okay.
Well, probably.
I just know when I
Other
see the WODs, it
Right.
says male weight, female weight.
Right.
It doesn't say women that weigh this much
Well,
use
yeah,
this
if you're
much.
115 pounds or 200, like, you should probably be carrying different weights.
Yeah, but my question revolved around, I think in CrossFit though,
Yeah, I
whether
think
if you're
you're
a
right.
female, if you're 110 or you're 210,
Yeah, it's the same weight.
Yes.
you're still
You're still lifting the same weight.
yeah, whatever the weight
Right.
is for the required amount of repetitions.
Right, yeah.
You know. You mentioned there are women only events, right? So
Mm-hmm.
is the women's side of strongman like kind of growing as much as the men's side? It sounds like there's federations now, there's weight classes
Yeah.
now, and it is growing.
It
is the
is.
women's side something that you kind of want to see grow?
It definitely needs a little more cheerleading, I guess. It's every event, there's probably minimum of 30. If there's 30 men, then there's 5 women. You know what I
Okay,
mean? If there's
yeah.
40 men, maybe there's 7 or 8. Like it's definitely much sparser. And I think some of that is from the stigma around it of, oh, I'm not strong enough to do that or something. You know, but what I want women to think of is go out, be like Travis, 0 out. Get the experience. Like we have 2 new athletes going into a competition in August. And they're like, do you think I can do these? I was like, I don't care if you can or not. Like, go out there and experience it. And it's kind of uplifting. Like, everyone's super supportive. I've never met a competitor who has not wanted another one to succeed, even though you're competing against them. So, I mean, it's just a good feeling. I want you to feel how the competition is. I want more women to get out there and just try it and don't be, like, kind of afraid of it.
Do you have any thoughts on how you can help make that happen?
I think it would just take them seeing more people out there, getting more of the word out. You know, it's obviously called Strongman. Maybe having some female only events would be kind of fun. You know, like they do that in powerlifting. They have like powerlifting princesses or something.
Okay,
I mean,
yeah.
maybe we won't call it the same thing, but I mean, the sport is called Strongman,
Yeah.
right? So it obviously lends itself towards traditionally male following.
And I was thinking that earlier, even when you said people feel like they have to be strong. Well, like it's in the name.
Exactly.
You know, so you can see
You're
why.
a strong man.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think a lot of people, the first time they do it, they don't realize how strong they are.
Yes, that is also true.
Right.
For
So
sure.
with a little technique help and some other help, I don't think people realize how strong they really are. And it surprises them because a lot of people can do it.
Yes.
And then with a little bit of training, obviously they get much better. But
Yeah.
I think most first time people I see and we do it and they come in and they surprise themselves about how strong they really are.
We've definitely hounded some people at our gym, be like, I know you're going to love this. Just come one Saturday. Nobody cares. We're going to work out for 2 hours and we're going to go out to lunch. Like everybody's relaxed. And they get in there and they do something they didn't think they could do. And it's like, you see their face and they're just like, oh my God.
I 100% agree. And I don't know how much you guys know about like our gym or anything, but you know, we work with a lot of beginners. That's kind of like our bread and
personal
butter.
training.
Yes.
Like, we're going to walk you through
That's
it.
right. We say we hold your hand through your fitness journey.
Yes.
It's kind of one of our little things, right?
Yes.
So people that aren't comfortable in the gym,
Right.
they never worked out much before, and people always underestimate
Yes.
their own abilities when it comes to like how much they can lift. And I see it all the time.
You
It
have to be that person to be like, nope, put 5 more pounds on.
Yes.
Do it.
Yeah, you can do more and you're okay. Cause I see like as trainers, we're watching specific things, you know, like the speed of the repetition, right? We're trying to guess like their RPEs and things like that. And I can tell when someone can do 5 more.
Right.
But they're like, nope, done.
Yes.
You know, and
Yeah.
you see it all the time. So yeah, they underestimate their own abilities. And then with a little fine tuning
Sure.
of technique, and I'm sure in some events that are very technique driven, you can see big increase in one day.
Absolutely.
You show up Saturday morning at 10 o'clock or whatever, by 11, you're significantly better.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure.
And
I think the log is something that's in a lot of competitions. And I think that's one of the most telling things. People look at this. Our women's log is 55 pounds. Our men's log is 100 or something. So it's intimidating. It's this big metal tube. It's supposed to put over your head, right?
And those are empty weights. And then
And
you
that's
add,
empty. Yeah.
you add weights.
Then you
to
add
it.
weight. But women just look at it and they're like, oh my God. I'm like, it's 55 pounds. It's 10 more than a barbell, an empty barbell. Put it over your head.
I thought they were way heavier than that. I've seen them before. I thought they were way heavier.
So
but-
some are. Depends
Yeah.
on, like ours at our gym weigh that. There's some logs that they're 200 pounds empty or more. So, but most logs are plate loaded, whether or not you see the plates on the outside or they're plate loaded from the inside.
okay.
They're covered so you can change the weights
Right.
of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in these different events that you mentioned earlier, you can kind of make your own events.
Yes.
And I also want to touch on the federation thing because that kind of shows like the professionalism and stuff like that. I feel like when people see a sport for the first time, and I know this firsthand because I don't know if you guys know, I play disc golf. And a lot of times when people see it for the first time, they're like, oh, the Frisbee thing.
Did you just go out and make this up?
Yeah, exactly, right? And so, but if they actually take just a few minutes to
Right.
kind of look at it and see there is a professional organization, there are professional athletes that make a lot of money doing this. It is a professional thing, right? So how have you seen, before we talk about the specific events, how have you seen that evolve over the past 20 years that you've kind of been in?
So in strongman, it was something you saw on TV. It was very popular in European countries. European athletes could make money off of it. They can make a living off of it. American athletes, we couldn't. Even our best American athletes really couldn't make money. So we all had other jobs. Now it's gotten to the point where there's a couple big names that have really made it popular. And only here recently has it been pretty profitable for especially the pros to make money, even some of the guys further down the chain to make money, like Brian Shaw and Eddie Hall. They pretty much been able to make strongman so popular that people can make money off of it now, right? So those athletes can not have other jobs. They can dedicate to strongman and be able to make a living doing it. So it's changed quite a bit since I was doing it, and I had a lot of sponsors to pay for travel and stuff like that, but it couldn't pay couldn't pay a living wage.
Right. It was enough pay to get to your events, do the thing, and kind of like take the weekend trip.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Kind of thing.
Yeah, you couldn't make it a job.
And how long ago was that?
I mean, Brian Shaw still had a job back in the early 2000s, or like the mid 2000s, so 2013, 2012, and he won a couple World's Strongest Man.
Before he was able to actually make it a living.
Yeah, so like even the World's Strongest Man winners weren't making a complete living off strongman until maybe here about 6 years ago, to be honest with you.
Very similar to my experience, like with seeing the disc golf situation.
Sure.
And I'm assuming they're making their money from social media.
Yeah, sponsors, social media.
Social media,
Equipment.
branding,
Yeah.
they're getting the clothing line out there, stuff like that. A lot of them are making money from social media for sure. But even competitions are paying a lot more money.
I love that. Yeah.
Competitions used to hardly pay anything. We'd be putting on a show for people. We'd be hurting ourselves. We'd be doing all this stuff, and we'd hardly get any proceeds from it, right? So the competitions are paying more, so it's better for the athletes now.
Yeah. I think that's very important because it's, entertainment for people,
for
and
sure.
people are doing what they love, and then it motivates people to be better. And I'm all for,
Yeah.
anything that gets people moving. And
And there's just more people going into it now. They do have the weight classes. They do let you try it out at a lower weight. Like, somebody who just started 2 months ago isn't going against Travis, which makes them feel probably a little bit better.
Yes.
Even maybe not, I don't know. But, with like these novice classes and people just getting into it before they commit to the lifestyle, I think has grown the sport too.
oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, the weight classes have helped get more people just in and trying it, right? Just
Right.
as
Yeah.
not to become a professional or go the whole way, but to do it as like a recreational sport, right? For health benefit, and I think a lot of people are seeing some health into it. Plus, it's a fun way to train, right? Maybe you don't like going to the gym and training like a bodybuilder. Maybe strongman's fits you a little bit better. You train in your garage, and you can stay healthy that way, and you kind of do it recreationally.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, exercise is very simple. That's a big thing that we like to do is make it simple for people. So if you can find something that you're doing some type of resistance,
Right.
you're elevating your heart rate, like you're getting a lot of the way there.
Yeah.
You know, so
But it's definitely more fun.
Yes.
Than just sitting on a treadmill for a couple hours. You know what I mean?
No doubt.
So it's definitely a fun sport to do.
Yeah, I want to get into what the training looks like, but before we do that, I'd like to talk about specifically some of the events. What are your guys' favorite events to do and to watch? 2 questions.
I mean, I think that the truck pulls are a big crowd pleaser, and it kind of makes you feel good when you do it because you're like, yeah, I just pulled a fire truck or whatever. But being said, it's not actually as hard as some might think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned that earlier. It's one of the easier ones, right?
It kind of is because it rolls, and so once it starts rolling, you're going.
Unless you're going uphill, and then it's
True. Then it's
I actually pulled my car here. So
yeah.
it's
So
all
I
good, man.
mean,
We're just hanging out.
I like the Atlas stones. I think they're fun. They're very challenging. You can have an advantage for being tall or having longer arms, but I think it humbles a lot of people. Trying to pick up this concrete stone where you have to find the center of gravity, you have to not roll it back and forth. It's also one of my better events, which is probably why I like it.
Yeah, people like to do stuff they're good at, you know?
Sure,
Makes me feel good.
Yeah, sure. People like to do stuff they're good at.
With rash burn, bruises, all that stuff. But I mean, that's one of my favorites. I don't know.
Okay, Travis, what about you?
Yeah, Atlas Zones is probably up there. I've been doing them for a long time. I've done them so much where my skin has changed. I have a permanent scallus on my forearms from bleeding so much from doing Atlas Stones.
If it's uncomfortable and it doesn't feel right and it kind of hurts a little, you're probably doing Strongman right.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. Nothing about it is comfortable, really.
Well, the most growth happens out of your comfort zone, right? So
This might be kind of a random question, but when I see the Atlas stones, I just see it as such a novice and it's just a big stone. And I know when it comes to so let's say a barbell, there's different companies that make different barbells. Mm-hmm. Is there a company that has that ideal Atlas stone that you're like, dude, if I had that piece, that would be so sick, but it's thousands of dollars to have an Atlas stone from this certain company?
Yeah, there is one company, and there's really only one company. It's Slater, and he makes logs and stones.
Okay.
And usually he's the one that makes them for World's Strongest Man or the Arnold. And he's been around forever. He's been making equipment back since I started lifting back in 2002 for Strongman. So he's been around a long time, but he's really the only one. There's been a couple that come up and gone away over time. But when it comes to the Atlas stones, you usually make them yourself.
Yeah, most people make them in their garage.
So
really?
You get the molds.
Okay.
You buy the molds. You can buy them from Rogue, and you can buy them from...
You can buy them from Slater, I think.
You can buy a Slater mold, too, but I think Rogue sells them now.
Okay.
And then I think there's a hybrid mold. But you buy the mold, and you make it yourself.
I did not know
all
that.
of our Atlas stones
That's
homemade.
That's so sick.
are homemade. Let me tell you the process of making one back in 2003, because you couldn't get one from Slater. He was just making it for the competitions. But so you'd go to Walmart and you'd buy a big blow up ball, right? You know the diameter that you want for the density of concrete you have. You'd blow up that ball to, let's say, 19, 20 inches. You want to make a 300-pound stone. And you get plaster of Paris, and you build it around a couple inches thick around this blow-up ball you got from Walmart, right? And you leave a little hole at the top about 3 inches wide. And once the plaster of Paris would set, you'd pop the ball, pull it out, and you'd fill it with concrete, and you'd make an Atlas stone that way. So you could train going into competitions. That's how we made equipment back then. That's how we got
really
around.
only evolved slightly to now you can just buy the plastic molds and then you still pour your own concrete in.
Are they all the same size, or does the heavier ones get bigger?
Yeah.
The heavier ones get bigger. Now, it depends on the density of concrete you use, too. So if you get a 300-pound Atlas stone mold, you can use denser concrete, and it'll make 300 pounds. And then you can use a light density concrete, and it'll make 271 or something like that. So you can use the same mold and make it different weight. You can put a lead shot in the middle, make it heavier than 300 pounds. So you can have the same diameter, but they're different weights. Mm-hmm. So you can get a little bit more out of the mold. But usually every mold is just a little bit bigger.
Yeah, it's similar density.
I've heard of some fancy ones that are like metal and you plate load them or something, but we haven't.
Those got popular for a couple of years, and it's kind of weighed off. Like you really don't see those anymore.
Yeah.
What about the other pieces of equipment? Do you make a lot of those yourself also?
Used to, you'd go find a local welder, and you would you'd get a big piece of pipe, and you'd weld it up for your log. You'd come up with schematics to do a Conan circle or a yoke. Yeah, you usually would find your local welder, and you'd try to weld some stuff up for equipment. Now you can order all that stuff from Rogue and like Titan and
yeah,
stuff like
standard
that. So,
companies.
Yeah, those axle bars look pretty wild.
Those are
Yeah,
fun.
It
They're-
looks
they're
like a
pretty-
drive shaft of a car or something.
Yeah.
It's just like this super thick barbell. It's pretty crazy looking.
most of them are hollow, so they're super light.
Okay.
Some
They're
of
like
them,
25 pounds.
Oh, wow.
some of them are solid, which you have to when you start deadlifting. Because I bent ours.
Yeah, because the weights just get
He's
so
bent a lot of
extreme, right,
our
on the
equipment.
ends.
Yeah, and the hollow ones, I bent ours really bad. So you have to have like
Sounds expensive.
Welcome to my life.
you have to have like for deadlift and a big competition. You have to have like the thicker ones, but most of them are hollow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me some other events that people seem to like. Because I remember, and I'll just mention a couple that I remember as a kid watching strongman events. I remember the Atlas Stones. I remember throwing things, like throwing like these barrels like over a certain
keg
height.
toss, yeah.
I remember there was another one where you would pick up there were cylinders that were attached to the ground on like a pivot. You had to pick them up and flip them over, right? And then there was a lot of carries as well. So can you kind of maybe talk about each one of those? You don't have to talk about the specific ones I mentioned, but I'm assuming those are like different kind of categories.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have the throw for height, which are always fun to watch, right?
Those are a big crowd pleaser.
It comes
Yeah.
from the Highland Games, right? The weight for height throw. So that's where it kind of comes from. But in strongman, we always have to do it a little different. So nowadays they have the sandbags that you can do that are very similar to the weight for height implement that Highland Games uses. Or you can use a keg because it looks cool, right?
Yeah,
Totally.
it's got handles on it, right?
And it's a keg.
Yeah,
Right?
Back in I believe it was '94, they actually used gold bricks. When they had it, I believe it
can
was
really
in
make
France that year.
Any event.
Yeah, can you throw anything as long as you have the weight like labeled for what the weight is?
Totally.
And how does that go with these federations though? Like, you're just like making your own stuff up. How does,
So there's no strict events. You can make an event up. You can say, okay, you have a 250-pound sandbag. You need to pick it up, run it 20 feet, set it down, and that's your event. Or you can say, oh, you got to pick it up, run 20 feet, set it down, pick it up again, run back 20 feet, right? There's a lot of variations to the event you can do. You can say, oh, you're going to take a sandbag down 20 feet, and then you're going to turn around and you're going to grab farmer walk handles and run back 20 feet.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different variations that you can do, and you can make it harder or easier that way, make it more fun.
So pretty much if you're going to host a strongman event, you decide, hey, I'm going to ruin my life for the next couple months and make it a terrible idea.
okay.
But then you just decide, okay, these are the events that I think the crowd would like, that I think are good for the athletes, that are going to be fun. Maybe it's the equipment that you have, and then you kind of go from there. You're like, hey, you go to one of the federations, you say, we want to have an event, we want to register it with you. And they're like, okay, do your thing. Usually.
And they just say yes or no. And it's usually yes, it sounds like.
Yeah, the main thing for the federation is for the insurance.
Oh, yeah.
And then there are some standardized events that you can get state national records on.
True. Yeah.
Okay.
But there's very few of those, to be honest with you, because there's certain ones you can control. And usually those are like max deadlift, max log press, circus dumbbell, max weight. So they're usually mostly max events.
Like and the maxes, is this a single rep max or is there
So
reps involved?
You get 3 attempts. And if you miss an attempt, you're out. You don't get to try any of your other attempts, and you have to call your weight. So like your opener, similar to powerlifting, but in powerlifting, you get all your attempts no matter what. In strongman, most of the time, it's called Wessel's rules, and if you miss one of your attempts, you get no more attempts. So you have to make sure your first attempt is something you know you can hit, or you get a big zero for the for the event.
And word to new people, you should make sure your coach looks over your first attempt that you tell them.
Right. And know if that rule is in place or not and things like that.
Yeah, well, Eve's mentioning it because she told the judges she was going to open up about 100 pounds over her max weight in one of the events.
I was just so
Luckily
excited, and I had pre-workout.
She like snorted some
I
pre-workout.
ran over
Right.
and told them my
Yeah,
weight.
throw 350 on the bar. Let's go.
Yeah, and the girls behind me were like, "Oh no!" Like we're competing against her. And I'm like, "What?"
Yeah.
Yeah, and luckily I went to go double check what she put down, and I was like, I told the judge, I was like, no, we're changing.
Good to have a buddy system.
Yeah. Aren't there some events that are, I remember what some events are for reps.
Yes.
Also,
Yeah.
right? So you can make, your scoring system can be by weight, by reps, by height,
by
time,
height.
distance maybe.
Distance, yeah, like when you're pulling
Distance,
something.
Yeah.
So and then you get scored on how you place in the event.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so weight for height, obviously the person that throws it the highest wins.
Right.
You got second and third player, so forth. So you have to track like the feet. You can either go every 6 inches or every foot height difference. They do have for distance, so sometimes you can do farmer walk handles and you just keep doing them until they fall out of your hands, right? So you do it for distance, or you can do it for 100 feet for time, like fastest time events. Now, if you don't make that 100 feet, then you don't get a time on your score. You get a distance. But then anybody that actually has a time score actually beats you because they made the full course.
They would automatically be placed ahead of you.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
So there's so many ways you can do it, and that's kind of and I guess it's similar to CrossFit. CrossFit can just come up with whatever they want to for an event, you know. So there's tons of ways to do it.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the scoring. So basically, it sounds like you set up, the event has, whether it's a distance or a time or whatever, right?
Right.
And if there's 10 competitors, whoever comes in first gets 10 points,
Exactly.
second gets 9 points, and it pretty much just always works that way.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
if you can't do it, then you zero out. Right.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah, if you
that's
don't get a
just-
rep or if you
Yeah.
don't get a lift or whatever, you'll get a 0 instead of a 1, even if you come in last.
Okay.
You'll get a 0 for it. And then obviously if you tie, you have to split points and stuff like that. But it's pretty
Yeah, it's pretty
straightforward.
much 10 people. First
Yeah,
person
that
gets
was-
10. Last person
That was
gets
my
1.
first thing I was thinking about. I was like, man, there's all these different styles of events. How do you score it?
Yeah.
But yeah, that makes it an easy
Right.
way. What events do you guys hate? Either for yourself because you're not good at it, or you just think it's, you're
just,
like,
like,
oh
hate
my
to
gosh,
watch
I
it.
have to do this.
Probably Husafeld is the most painful
What is that?
event you can do. It is usually almost looks like a gravestone, and it tapers down like a diamond almost, right? And a lot of times they're like 300, 350 pounds. And you have to pick that up and you have to hold it onto your arms like so. So it's just digging down into your biceps and you're like 300 pounds, just digging down. You have to hold it up and you have to walk with it until you drop it or you pass out.
Yeah.
And it's just one of the most grueling, painful events. If you're going last, I like going last on that event, so I know how far I need to go.
And no further.
But if you don't go last, and you got to go all the way, it's so awful, so painful.
Oh man.
I would say similarly, anything that is a static hold, like they have like a hammer hold where you just have to hold it until you drop.
Mm-hmm.
Or chain holds. I mean, sometimes you do anything like that where it's more of a mental thing almost than how strong are you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I remember when I was a kid, the event that I always thought was the most grueling or most painful was the one, I don't remember what it was called, but they would have 2 columns.
Oh,
and
the
they were
Hercules
hooked.
hold.
Yeah, Hercules. That's what it
Yes.
was.
Yeah.
You would stand up and you just hold your arm straight out.
God,
It's a
I know
mental-
exactly what you're
Yeah,
talking
in the
about.
grip, and I'd see their hands would be bleeding.
Yeah.
We-
So we
we
have
have
one of
one.
those at the gym. We had a member build one for us actually.
Wow.
That's so sick.
Everyone tried to kill themselves last time.
How
we
heavy
put
are
it in an
y'all's?
event.
It was plate loaded, so you can
Okay.
make it very
Yeah.
heavy, and we made it quite heavy for it. But using it in a competition and people's never used one before, it got dangerous. So we'll never do it again.
Yeah, that one is dangerous because it's 2-sided.
Uh-huh.
So if they let go of one,
Oh my gosh.
they're going this
it
way.
yanks you
or,
over.
Yeah.
Or
So
a lot of times, the dangerous part is if they start if they don't balance themselves and they start moving to one side
Yeah.
and they don't let go of
They
the
don't
other
let go,
side,
so they're pulling it on.
Falls
themselves.
over on
they're
you.
pulling the pillar onto themselves.
Ours
Yeah.
has some safety measures in it, but we did go to a competition where it was just 2 telephone poles and a string in the middle. And
A string.
They had, well, a chain, sorry. They had to stop the competition because it was going to murder someone.
Yeah, it was,
Like, they had to go to some other event.
Wow. So do you guys still train with it, with y'all's?
Yeah, we
and
do.
You just don't do it in the competitions?
Well, if we have it coming up in an event, we'll train for it. Again, it's a spectacle event, right? You can train grip strength doing a lot of other things where you don't have to set up this big apparatus. So it's a spectacle. So if we're training for the Hercules hold itself for a competition, we'll pull it out. If not, we'll do a different grip training.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, can we talk about like what does training look like? Because you just said that, you can train the event without having to put yourself in danger of doing it, right? So can you give me some more examples like that? I mean, we've talked about a few events specifically. So like the Atlas stones, the deadlift, the overhead, the log press, stuff like that.
I think most people will be surprised to know that most of the core of your training is not these events. You have to become strong and then be able to do the events, right?
So most of your training is going to be normal gym lifting, right? Squats, deadlifts, could be variations of certain things, but you're always going to have an overhead in a competition. You're always going to strongmen have to have strong backs because you're going to be lifting things all the time, not just deadlifting, but picking stuff off the floor, so forth. So you got a lot of lower back work and back work in general. And then you usually always throw squats in there. You never really see a squat in strongman, but having strong legs really help with a lot of other events and so forth. So you always know you're going to have those in there. And so you always throw in usually some type of overhead strongman in training, which is usually the log or maybe an axle. And then the rest of your overhead training is pretty similar, like dumbbells,
like
raises,
things
like
that you would normally be doing.
as accessory. Deadlift, a lot of times you're just using the regular bar deadlift. You see that in strongman a lot, but you do variations of it. You do snatch grip deadlifts, help you get stronger off the floor, so sandbags are easier, right? Because you're having to get down so low, and then that makes stones easier. A lot of times we wouldn't train stones all the time unless we have them coming up in a competition. If we don't have a competition coming up, stones are fun to do, so we'll throw them in. We like to keep doing them every now and then, but a lot of times you keep a competition on the horizon. You know what events you need to be training, so you throw those into your training. So you don't really train events too much during the week, or at least we don't. Maybe 2 events throughout the week during our regular gym sessions. And then we usually get 3 event trainings in on Saturday. So we get 3 events that we're going to be seeing soon, and we'll train those on Saturday. Sometimes we rotate them through. If we can't get every event that's going to be in the competition, we rotate them through every other weekend. So,
what percentage would you say is like standard gym stuff? Like 80%, 70%?
More like 80, 75, 80%.
85%, something like that. Just standard gym stuff. Especially the way I train, I throw a lot of bodybuilding work into my training.
Because you like it or because you feel like it's effective?
It's both. Obviously, we get into strength training and we get into strongman or bodybuilding because we want to look better, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, everybody does. In bodybuilding, you just don't want to be strong. You want to look strong.
Yeah.
So I add in bodybuilding work, and a lot of the guys I coach, I added in with them as well because, it might not correlate completely over to strongman, but you want to look strong, not just be strong as well.
And we also want to protect the athletes. If you had them doing these events 5 days a week, they would be torn up.
Oh, your nervous system would be shot.
Sure. Yeah, that makes complete sense.
Like we do the yoke run, and we do that the last event on Saturdays if we're going to do it because it's crushing your spine, basically. Mm-hmm. Have you seen the yoke?
That's the big thing you put on your
shoulders.
Yeah,
essentially
and you're like just walking. Really
you just walk with it on your back.
We did 900-pound yoke walks last Saturday.
You put like 900 pounds on it, you walk with it. And
how far?
We only have 30 feet.
We were 30 feet down, 30 feet back.
Yeah, so of turf, so we did 60 feet. But if you did that every day, you would be toast, right?
Yeah. Is there like and is there like an on season, off season? Like as the competition is getting closer, maybe that split goes from 90-10 to 80-20 to 70-30, like getting a little more specific.
Sometimes there's really not an off season. There's competitions all the time. You kind of just pick and choose when you want to compete. The bigger competitions happen later in the year. Like nationals and worlds, they always happen later in the year, but there's not really an off season. We just
Just as a recreational sport, we have a group of people that like to do it. So we kind of poll them like, hey, how many people want to go to
This competition.
And we can kind of cater a program to that.
And do you think it changes too with maturity in the sport? Like you've been doing it for longer, so you know that you're good at Atlas stones. You don't need to practice a whole lot.
That has something to do with it, but I always try to look at it as, and I always try to practice my weaknesses, but never take it for advantage, right? Always keep your technique going. I know I'm good at something, but if I don't train it, I can't expect to win it, right? I'm like truck pulls. They're real easy. I'm very good at it because I have good technique on it. I know how to do it over, I've pulled planes, trains, buses, fire trucks, all sorts of stuff, but I never want to take it for granted. So I always want to keep it in training, work on the basics, keeping your head down, small driving with your feet, hips low, like keep the basics in. So, you're going to be good when competition comes around. So I never take it for advantage just because I'm good at it.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
When it comes to training that movement, do y'all just like go out in the parking lot and you're like, all right, bro, throw your truck in neutral, man. We're just like dragging along.
We do. We have a harness, and it's not just neutral. It's
you ride the brake. And depending on who's behind the wheel, depends on how good of a workout
that's
you
the
get.
resistance. That's your resistance profile right there.
Like I said, it's not hard. So pulling my 4-year-old son could do it if he really wanted to.
He's a little stronger.
He's
than
big.
But
It's a strong 4-year-old dude.
But no, I get what you're saying though. Yeah, once it gets rolling, it's going.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so you pull on the brake, and that also helps us train that event to like push through the event and keep going. So our athletes usually do pretty well at that. But that's something like 20 years ago we used to do it. Travis Oatmeyer, Jess Thigpen, me, Jim Glassman, Marshall White. We're all at the unit in Cypress. It's hot. We're pulling a car around a whole storage unit building with, big Travis Oatmeyer just riding the brake the whole time, telling you to stop throwing up. So.
All right, dude, we got to go to the Strongman Saturday thing to watch.
For real.
Yeah, no.
Definitely gonna spectate.
If you're not training these events, you're going to get in your head when you get in there and you're going to mess up. So you have to be well practiced and like he was saying, you're good at it, but because you're good at it, if you're not used to it, you're going to just, if you're me, I just lose it.
Yeah, so 20% or 10 to 20% of total training is going specifically to the events. If you don't mind, get a little specific on that other 80%. What you mentioned some bodybuilding stuff, so maybe like 8, 10, 15 rep what kind of sets, reps, compound exercises versus isolation, stuff like that?
So we do a lot of strength. So it would be similar to almost powerlifting. So obviously we got the squats and deadlifts and so forth in there. Usually 5x5s. A lot of times we'll get a little bit lower. We'll go 5 triples. Depending on what the competition calls for. If the competition is calling for something that's going to be a max deadlift, then we'll taper down to where we're doing heavy doubles, triples. If we got a competition that's going to be, for reps, like a certain amount of weight for reps, then you're working your endurance on the deadlift more. So we're doing more volume on that. Squats, again, you don't really see that in a lot of competitions, so we don't train that super heavy. We usually keep a good amount of reps on that, 5x5, usually for that, or sometimes we'll go a little bit heavier and bring the reps down. But we keep, in my training, I try to keep it around 5.
Okay.
For most part. I only max out maybe 2-3 times a year. I don't like trying to go too heavy too often. Well, I'm old now too, so It's not great.
He also didn't like cardio, so he didn't go
who
above
does?
5 very
Anything
often.
above 5 reps is cardio.
Dude, he mentioned bodybuilding. And I was like, oh man, this guy's hitting some 12s, 15s or something.
I do on accessories. So accessory work. Yeah.
Okay, like biceps, triceps,
Yeah,
stuff like that.
lat pull downs, rows, that sort of
Okay.
thing. The accessories for the leg, hack squat, the leg extensions, curls.
I feel like
I'll hit-
heavy rows would be a big part of training.
So heavy rows helps with your deadlift quite a bit.
Yeah.
And then it helps with a lot of other pulls you have, like log clean or truck pulls, stuff like that. It helps strengthen the bicep tendon, the bicep itself. But rows is a big thing, and heavy rows has been shown to help deadlifts out quite a bit.
Yeah. Do you bench press at all, or you're pressing usually just only overhead?
I do bench press a little bit. I do think it helps me with my overhead somewhat. I don't think it correlates a lot, but I do bench press. But with issues I've gotten from breaking my arm playing rugby and some other stuff, I have to use what's the slingshot.
I'm
I don't know
familiar.
if you've heard about it.
Yeah.
So I have my left arm tries to swing out from me all the time. So the slingshot helps keep my arm in place, so I can bench properly.
Okay. What about you? What kind of similar kind of protocol or?
Well, he writes my programs.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. No
And
choice.
I
Huh?
never really follow them. I
Very
do.
surprised.
She don't listen to me.
She's not
I
surprised.
I pick and choose the ones I like. And I'm like, I'm done for
Then why
today.
have a program?
Because it's a good general guideline.
Okay. Yeah.
No, I mean, I follow it to some extent, but I'm like, oh, he put 15 reps on this. I'm not doing that. I'm going to do 8. I don't know.
But that's what I tell a lot of the people that I make programs for is, so the main movement is you have a certain number you have to hit. Usually you have a certain
percentage
max
or-
that
yeah.
you
Percent
need
of
to
max?
be hitting.
Yeah.
Okay.
You have a certain amount of work you need to be doing on the main movement. On the accessory stuff, you just do what you feel like. Add stuff to it if you want to. Take some stuff away. Like really, and it usually takes you about an hour to do your main movement, anyways, because all the amount of sets and reps you have, even if it's low rep. When you go that heavy, you got to get a little bit more rest in between.
That was my next question. Actually, I wanted to talk about rest times.
Yeah.
On this stuff, whether you're events training or gym training, like what do the rest times look like on a 5x5, and then
It's
maybe a
usually
5x2?
4 or 5 minutes.
Okay. Yeah.
Rest time. Now, the rest of the time, me personally, I like to speed up my workout. I like to superset a lot of stuff, move. But on the strength portion, you got to take time in between so you can get the full benefit every time. Especially once you start getting higher percents and you start having to really push it. In strongman training, a lot of times there's a lot of rest in between if you want it, because in the event you're going to do the event, you're kind of done. But what we do is we do a lot of conditioning for strongman. And guys hate it when I do it. Just to keep us fast and explosive. And I usually use sandbags to do it, and they hate it. But
Our
we
team
do-
always wins the sandbag events.
we do what's called Indian drills. I don't know if you know what those are, but so you keep doing something in a rotation until someone drops. And in our case, usually we're like doing a 250-pound sandbag or something, picking it up, throwing it over your shoulder, or picking it up and run with it. And whoever's there, you keep rotating. So if there's 4 guys there or 5 guys there, you just keep rotating.
Just run through the line.
Each person does it once, and
And you rest for as long as it takes the other 3 to do it.
Exactly. And then you don't stop until someone drops.
All right.
Sean, I changed your mind.
You're no longer coming. You're like, I'll come until that event.
Yeah, and I wanted to talk specifically about rest times because I was curious. We talked about endurance earlier. There's got to be a place in the training for endurance, not only strength. In the, I actually heard Greg Glassman, right? The guy that invented CrossFit, isn't that his name?
Sounds right.
I think so. I heard him say in an interview one time, the reason he invented CrossFit because he had this, he saw this thing where like people that were really good at one thing were always really bad at another.
Yeah.
And so that's where he came up with CrossFit.
Right,
You
it's
have
the
to be
strength
strong
and
and fast.
Sure.
And, mobile, right? All
Right.
these things. You can't bench press 300 and then take 20 minutes to run a mile.
Right.
Like, how can you do both? And Strongman has that also. So how do you approach that?
It has that. And actually back in the early 2000s, you know, when you trained people that came in to try strongman, you train them. That's where CrossFit came. General population strongman training is CrossFit.
Oh yeah. Makes sense. Yeah. I see that.
So yeah, anybody that did it back, you know, in the early 2000s, especially if you worked as a trainer or coach, you know, general population people that you had to do strongman was CrossFit.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. That's where it came from. But and I believe that gentleman, he did strongman a little bit as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't really know much about CrossFit at all.
He did some in the lightweight class or something, but yeah. So we throw in endurance a lot for being quicker on the medleys, right? A lot of times these medleys only last a minute or a minute and a half.
Can you define a medley real quick?
So medley is multiple events in one event, right? So it'd be like taking a yoke down 50 feet, dropping it, picking up farmers, taking it down 50 feet, then having to load two sandbags over a bar, right? Something like that. So you have a minute or a minute and a half to complete this course or this structure of events. And especially when it gets heavy, it taxes your nervous system and you're running with the weight and you're moving with it. So you don't realize how much cardio conditioning you need for that. It's actually a good amount. And it's only lasting a short amount of time, but you have to condition your body for that. And a lot of times we'll do conditioning like the Indian drills. Those could last like 25 minutes doing that stuff, right? But
maximum effort.
Yeah,
25 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably not maximal effort.
Well, you have those short break times,
Yeah.
but when you're going, it's maximum effort. Yeah.
Pretty close. So it really wears you down. So we train, at least our athletes, we train a lot of endurance. We want to be mobile and moving. A lot of times we'll do HIIT style training. Like
well, he puts it in the program, whether they do it or not.
Sometimes.
Do you use like bikes and rowers also?
Yeah, so my favorite one is I'll row 600 meters. It's a 20-minute AMRAP. I'll row 600 meters and I'll do 10 sandbags over shoulder. Usually 250-pound sandbag over shoulder, 10 of them, right back to the rower. I usually get 4 rounds in.
I think you add abs in usually.
Sometimes I'll add stuff in between, but that's usually my favorite one to do. But you can do all sorts of different type of HIIT training that you can add a strongman implement into that gets your conditioning up. So when it comes to that minute of maximum effort that you need to perform, you can get that 1 or 2 extra reps you need to get in to win the event. And that's, I think, really separates the elite strongman from the average strongman.
Yeah, I feel like a AMRAP with a strongman implement is a great way to train the endurance version, you know, because it's almost like the real test is the last 5 minutes.
Exactly. The first part.
Which feels like it's just how you're going to feel in the competition.
Right.
You know, when you're like at your wit's end, you know. If you guys don't mind, can we talk about nutrition a little bit? I'm kind of a nutrition nerd.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of curious of if you have, you know, in the bodybuilding world, obviously super strict. In the powerlifting, they're like, eat as much as you can. Where does strongman kind of fit in there?
It's somewhere in the middle, kind of.
Well, it kind of goes to both sides, right? Sometimes if you're trying to make a weight class in strongman, you're chicken and rice, right?
Yeah.
You're cutting, you're trying to lean out. If you're trying to be heavier for a competition, because it's heavy comp, you know, you're maybe tracking your protein quite a bit, but not so much your carbs and fats, kind of just letting loose. Or even in the off season or when I'm not close to a competition, I just track protein, really.
Okay,
Not much more than that, but I think it incorporates all aspects of it. Some strongman will chicken and rice it and try to get down to a weight class. I've done it before.
Yeah.
Or you kind of just track your protein and eat whatever you want.
Yeah, a lot of it for me, when people ask me, like as athletes for performance, like eat what makes you feel good.
Yes.
Is oftentimes really important.
Yeah.
So if, you know, nice whole foods, like a chicken and rice type of situation, potatoes and stuff, like keeping it whole foods, you know, is what's going to make you feel good, which will help you perform the best.
Right.
But then a lot of people struggle to get enough calories in.
Yeah,
in
that's
that
probably
situation.
my biggest thing is like, especially like we have a 4-year-old running around. I forget to eat a lot.
Okay, yeah. I've never had that problem.
Yeah,
personally.
I know it's weird. You wouldn't think so, but then I find myself not feeling good, not getting in my my lifts like I want to. I
Right.
get to the gym and I'm like, I can't. I don't have it today.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is really important, especially like fats. I think people underestimate the power of, the good fats in your diet. I know when we first got together 100 years ago that Travis did not eat as many vegetables as he now eats.
Okay. So a little more health oriented in your wise age, sounds like.
Or he's
Still
forced
fight it.
into it.
I still fight it.
So I'm a really strong believer in a healthy diet.
Good.
I don't
I love
always
that.
do it, obviously, but I think it's just a good balance, and how you have to kind of see how your body feels, because I can tell you these are what your macronutrients should look like, maybe, but you could do that and it doesn't work for you.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think it's a lot of feel.
Yeah, a lot of experimentation,
Yeah.
for sure, and kind of I feel, in my opinion, feeling good is always the most important. So if I'm eating something, even if it's quote unquote good for me,
Right.
but it makes my digestive system and
Then what
not
good
feel
is it
great.
doing you?
Exactly. Yeah. Do you have any type of like pre-competition food, or do you try to carb up before competitions?
We definitely have during competition food.
Yeah,
Okay.
during's very important because, like I said, the food, the competition can last a very long time, and you have to be strong, and then you have to rest. You could be hours in between events, right? So, having a certain food with you at competition is very important, and it has to be light on the stomach, so you're not getting heavy, because you still have to pick things up. You're going to move quickly, but you have to have energy and keep a little protein in there. So those Uncrustable peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
Oh, good
That
choice.
and Fig
you just-
Newtons.
Those
That
are
and
good.
Fig Newtons. I got that Fig Newton trick from Travis Oatmeyer, but the peanut butter and Uncrustables, they work really well, and they keep you with enough energy, and don't keep you all full and bloated.
Yeah, you're going a lot of carbs, a little bit of fat,
Yeah.
minimal protein. You don't really need the protein on the competition day. You
Right.
need energy, right? Last question, I think, on this topic, hydration. Is that something that you're really focused on during training? I'm assuming that most of this stuff is outside.
Yeah.
It's very hot.
Yeah.
Whether you're training like on the weekends, like you guys are talking about, or during the competition, they have like hydration protocols, electrolytes, stuff like that, or.
I mean, yeah, again, it's, how you're feeling. Like if we're just on a Saturday at the gym, most people typically know how to handle themselves.
Sure.
Right. Because they're there all the time. At the competition, it does get weird because you don't want to necessarily hydrate or eat or drink, and a lot of times they are outside and it's very hot. So we bring a lot of things with electrolytes in them. We do electrolyte tabs if people don't want the Gatorade or whatever.
Yeah, I would have to say one of the worst ones I've ever done is a Highlands game, because in the middle of the summer, wearing a kilt, and I wear my neoprene shorts for Strongman, right, to keep everything tight. I think I got really close to dehydration that day. It was bad. Plus, it went from 9 in the morning until 9 at night, so it was a long day, because Highland Games is 9 events,
What's the typical strongman? How many?
5 events.
5. Okay.
Wow. Is the Highland Games like kind of like the Super Bowl? Like, is it like one of the real big events, or?
No, it's a different sport.
Oh, okay.
So Highland Games is the Scottish throwing games, right? And it's all the same events every time. It's 9 events. It's always the same.
Okay.
It's weight for height. It's the caber toss, where you're flipping the telephone pole, right?
Okay.
You got hammer throw. It's more like a track and field type thing.
Gotcha.
Shot put, but it's with like a stone instead of a pretty round shot put. And then weight for heights and all that good stuff.
So you can
it's
really
all
train specifically for the specific event.
Yeah.
Right,
But
and
it's
they're all
very
the same.
similar training to Strongman.
Yeah,
So those
they-
two kind of lend themselves
Some kind of
together.
little bit of crossover.
There's a
I
lot
think
more
his point was
skill.
really that it was outside
Yeah.
in
all right.
Houston.
Yeah,
in
it's just
June.
so hot.
Yeah.
You know.
He did almost die, I'm pretty sure, that day.
It was close.
Yeah.
It was close.
Yeah. Did you change anything after that day with your protocols?
Well, for the Highland Games, the kilt was much warmer than you think it would be.
Yeah, you'd think it'd be nice and
Like,
airy,
nice and
right?
breezy.
It was awesome.
It was wool.
Okay. Yeah.
So we got a new one. It's
Okay.
not wool.
Yeah.
So I got an athlete kilt, so it breathes better. I got different neoprene shorts that breathe better. Obviously, I was drinking normal, but try to load up a little bit more on hydration beforehand, and then I definitely kept an eye on it better the next time because it was summertime too. The next time I competed in the Highland Games, so
Yeah.
But you have to do it for strongman as well. You have to a lot more. Obviously, some strongman competitions are inside, so they're air conditioned.
Okay.
Big arenas, stuff like that. You still have some that are outside, but usually they're not in the middle of the summer. They
Right.
try not to be.
Yeah. Well, you said it's a little busier at the end of the year, or you did mention that earlier. So, and that's that because of the weather. Is that why it's cooler?
Maybe in Texas. I mean, they just had one at the NRG Center indoor. So you can get a lot more indoor strongman. Obviously, Highland Games, you can't do any of that indoor. Well, you can, but they only do it at the Arnold indoors. But most of it's just always outside.
I mean, when we host strongman competitions, we try to take it to a fun location. Like we've done the Kima Boardwalk, we've done Jackie's Brick House, we've done some outdoor, but we try to take it to a fun location, which it's outdoors. So we try to do it in October or May at the latest.
Okay. Yeah.
Like pretty much the rest of the year is not lend itself to outdoor competitions for strongman.
Yeah, not at all. I could see that. If someone wanted to get started in strongman, they never done it before. They're one of those people that seems interesting, but I think it's not for me. Like, what do you recommend? How does someone get started? Even if they've never thought about it before.
Show up, go to a thing, get outside of your comfort zone. People are going to be more helpful, excited for you, supportive than they're probably thinking they're going to be. Call your local gym that might have it and just go watch an event. I mean, you would be surprised at the camaraderie that the athletes have for each other.
Yeah, because even though you're not really you're competing against the event. You're competing against yourself most of the time. Like you are competing against other people,
Sure.
But really you're competing against the apparatus and yourself. So, and even if you were competing against the person directly, it's a very friendly sport. You'd be surprised because it's a bunch of big guys, muscled down. We're doing all sorts of stuff, but it's a super friendly sport. To find someone unfriendly and strongman will be a hard thing to do.
Yeah. Usually in the competition, your biggest competitor is going to be right there being like, just another rep, or you know what I mean? Like it's a really interesting community.
Yeah, it is always important to remember that in any of these situations, you're competing with yourself.
Yeah.
How can I be better at this competition than I was at the last one? Better tomorrow.
Yeah.
Better today than yesterday, kind of thing.
And you can, at the end of the day, you can only do what you can do. So being mad at someone else because they did more it's, you know what I mean? What's the point?
Yeah, I do agree. Tell us the details about Strongman Saturday. What's going on with that?
So at Iron Keel, we have Strongman Saturday open to any member or really the public. We'll let anyone come in, try it out. It's from 10 to 12. We do a couple of fun events. Maybe we're training for a competition. Maybe not. We just pull some fun stuff out if we don't have something coming up. And we usually try to split up the men and the women just because of time. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So we have fewer people on any one implement, and then we just have a good time. We get a good workout in, and then, we, a lot of them will hang out afterwards or it's a community. So,
yeah. Eat breakfast first.
Yes.
Hydrate first.
Hydrate and eat. That's usually.
Yes. Yeah. Because
try not to train outside too much.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'll say
most of our training is inside, but then we'll go, do the stones.
I'll say Travis is going to get you on those sandbags.
Yeah. No, the sandbags are always inside. For us.
It won't be a good time if you
Still
don't.
get you on though.
It will. It doesn't matter if you're inside or outside.
Yeah. Sean, do you have any questions?
I guess injuries. Injuries
Okay.
is my
That's a good question.
When I was thinking about it when we started talking about Brian Shaw, and a clip that I remember of his that's pretty funny that I like to think about is when he's throwing the sandbag and he's throwing it up really, really high, and he one falls and it hits him on his shoulder, and it's really heavy. And I think
the keg.
Yeah,
it was a pony keg.
Yeah, it was a keg. So he throws it up and it lands on his shoulder, and I think it messed his shoulder up pretty bad, but he didn't look like he was really phased. So I was just wondering, what are some of the common injuries in strongman?
So injury from the apparatus itself is very rare. There's been a couple.
We had a girl toss up a sandbag and try to catch it.
Oh.
Like it didn't go where it was supposed to go. And so she pretty much broke her finger, I think.
Oh, no.
But that was just...
She tried to catch it?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was like natural reaction.
Yeah, it
We were
is.
like-
That's a little user error, but yeah.
Yeah, so from the apparatus, there's been some injuries, like people lifting the Atlas stone and they fall back and the Atlas stone kind of lands on
Oh
them.
my gosh.
I've seen like a tire fall on somebody, fall back on them and kind of pin their knee, but very few from the apparatus. Now, injuries that you see an athlete getting from this type of stuff, and I've probably gotten all those injuries.
Travis has ripped every muscle in his body.
So
I'm pretty sure.
hamstrings are a big one. I've seen a quad tear off the bone doing a yoke before.
ACLs, like doing overhead stuff, getting off your feet.
Yeah.
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot of knee injuries. You don't like to see them. You don't wish it on anybody. You see a lot of. I've had many. My most recent one is I tore off my adductor squatting. Tore off my right adductor. It went out in the middle of a squat and shot my knee out to the right, and then I had to pull over to my left to not crumble under the weight and finish the lift on my left leg, and it slightly tore my left adductor and my lower abdominal. So, you get little injuries like that, but then you
Little?
By the way, I was in the gym.
That sounded insane. Like every part of it.
I heard him scream, and I was like, "Oh, he just had a good lift." Like I just kept going.
Can't tell the difference between a
can't.
successful lift and he
And your
died.
whole,
Oh, he doesn't look good anymore.
the whole bottom of your.
Oh, we have a special guest.
our 4-year-old found us. Well, I don't make noise when I have a successful lift.
okay.
Period. But yeah, so it was the worst injury I've ever had in my career. It took a while to recover from, but it was all right.
Yeah, injuries are never fun.
Yeah,
Hamstrings, you guys get those quite often. Similar injuries to football, really.
Yeah.
You get a lot of guys that get hamstring pulls or strains and stuff like that. So,
Okay.
Is there a particular event that causes a lot of injuries that people are like scared of?
Yes, for me, circus dumbbell
circus dumbbell's a
is
dangerous
a dangerous sport.
Is that,
that
from
what
the
it
ground to overhead?
Yeah, it's the huge dumbbell. Looks real funny. You get it to here, and then you press it.
Okay.
You press with one arm. But the problem is if people aren't used to doing it, they'll position it too far behind them. So when they do the push press, the dumbbell falls back instead of if it fell forward, you can bail. So they get their arm twisted up underneath the dumbbell and it pulls their arm back, and it could really mess up your shoulder pretty badly. I've seen it happen to someone once in a competition. It wasn't pretty. But it's something, especially when we train it, I always stand behind the athletes. In case that happens to them, I just catch it. Because it's something that can it really ruin somebody's day.
Yeah. Is it the size of the dumbbell that's why that
awkward.
happens? It's
Yeah,
awkward.
because it's so big. Like the guys, it's like the 12-inch.
Oh, my
and
gosh.
Putting it back here, right, and so it's up against the side of your head and your cheek,
Your turn. Yeah.
and you're turned out. And even the girls is pretty big too.
I was gonna say the actual width of the grip is bigger too, right?
The fat grip.
Yeah, it's a fat grip as well. Yeah.
Travis found out in a competition, when you lift it, a large amount of weight coming straight towards your ear is not great.
No, it sounds terrible.
So I blew out my eardrum and cut my ear. It was a circus dumbbell for reps in a competition. It was, I think, Battle for Texas. And first rep, I came back down with it, and it hit on my ear perfectly to where it cupped my ear and sent like a little pressure concussion through there, and like kind of burst my eardrum to where it just started bleeding. So I was doing the next rep. I did the next rep. I would go for the third one. I got all this blood just falling down. I had to look at the judge. I'm like, I couldn't see. I was like, "Am I bleeding?" He's like, "Yeah, but you're fine. Keep going."
Perfect.
That's usually the mentality.
Thanks, bro. So you didn't feel that at all, I guess?
I felt it. I just didn't
Think much of it.
I didn't
Didn't know
think
what it
much
was
of it.
from.
I didn't think it would cause my ear to bleed,
Right.
and it bled pretty badly. So I guess it's very vascular there. So it was just a lot of blood. It wasn't a bad injury or anything, but
That sounds bad.
Great. I was
Sounds like
pregnant at the
not many
time.
things are a big deal to this guy. That's what I'm
Pregnant at
hearing.
the time, and I just got a picture of blood everywhere. It's like, great.
Oh, man.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, this definitely sounds like a warrior sport. It's like from the stones to the hammers
Yeah.
to the one guy. He's like, I just make sticks and stones. That's just like my thing. Like it's like it's pretty sick. I will say it sounded really really cool.
yeah, you have to endure a good amount of pain. I mean, that's just something you get. You like how my forearms are. There's different skin here, and you know, it was like my hands are different skin from it and stuff. So you just get used to the pain, and it's just something. It's just part of it, right? So
Part of the journey.
Part of it.
Yeah.
Part of the
Well,
sport.
yeah, I really appreciate you guys coming on. Anyone listening to this, make sure you check out Strongman Saturdays at Iron Keel.
Yes.
And that's been going on for a while. Going to stick that way for a while, I'm assuming.
Yep.
Sounds like, right?
Iron Keel Strength and Fitness in League City. We plan on, we every once in a while have a Saturday off, but almost every Saturday we're in there.
Okay. So 10 to 12 every Saturday. Check them out.
Yes. Yeah.
And anything else you guys want to say before we sign out?
No, I appreciate you guys having us on.
Thanks.
Yeah, for sure. All right, guys. We'll see you next time.
All right.
Peace out, everybody.